looking for in, when you think of your ideal college experience? Like, what does that look like? What are some of those elements? And without a doubt, culture is always something that gets mentioned. In fact, so much so that it got to be pretty annoying. So I would then answer them and be like, aside from culture, we all want a challenging playing environment. We all want people that we enjoy being around. We all want respect. We all want to be pushed. Outside of that culture, what else are you looking for? So I think it's a universal value that we all, I think, in whatever level we're coaching, can share. So if you were to I Googled a bunch of different culture things, and I've been to a bunch of different conventions, and ultimately they boil down to these 4 elements. Like, what is culture? It includes your values, beliefs, behaviors, and norms. Norms could also be traditions. That's another word that people use. So if we're just, for the sake of this discussion, we're just going to kind of agree that when we are talking in the context of culture, not necessarily like ethical or ethnic cultures, there's a lot of different definitions, but for the sake of this conversation, we'll go to those 4 things. So, okay, so in your experience, we all universally say we value culture, why? Why is culture important? Say again?
Belonging.
Sense of belonging. What else? Why would you say, why is this an important topic for any coach/leader to talk about?
Bad culture is draining.
Right?
Or a complaining culture is draining.
Yeah. Changes the experience, right? Good way or bad?
How do you get new players on board and integrated and functioning at the levels and doing the things that the older players or the returning players or whatever the environment is?
Yep. Goes to that norms.
Drives results.
A lot of times, like at higher levels, everybody's good, so culture makes a big difference in separating teams.
Yeah, very much so. So for me, just a quick little background. So I played at Duke University, played on the national team, coached at Duke, University of Tennessee, and then Embry-Riddle, which was NAI when I first got there. That was my first head coaching job. Was at Embry-Riddle for 15 years, and then it transitioned to Division II, and then at University of Florida. So I've had experience in a lot of different college levels. I've not spent a lot of time in the club from a coaching standpoint. Obviously, we invest a lot from recruiting, but and that's a reality for us, is the culture, to what you said at the end. That is a big distinction. When you think of, from a recruiting standpoint, a lot of, let's say, SEC schools, they have a lot of the same things. So like, what distinguishes this school from this school? This, I'm gonna use the word experience, from this experience. And a lot of it does come down to culture. So there's a strong correlation between strong culture and strong performance, right? And no matter what level, that's important for us. It enhances the experience. We know a bad culture, so then obviously you know what a good culture is. But I would add the most important thing that I have found in my own experience, and similar to what Dave said, is I'm not sitting here saying I'm an expert. I'm just sharing from my experience, and maybe something resonates with you guys. The culture piece is where I've felt like I've been able to impact more than in any other way. There's a ton of really good soccer coaches, X's and O's and all those things. There's great recruiters. But for me and my value system, the culture is where I've been able to have an impact, especially from a faith standpoint. I've never worked for a school where we've been allowed to openly have a mission statement that included anything spiritual. So we've always had to kind of do it, I don't want to say behind the scenes, but more from a personal standpoint. And so that culture piece is where I feel like that transformational approach really allows me to kind of share my faith. So I'm going to share this with you all. So this is just a little bit of a snapshot. This was super helpful for me. I never got this until I was preparing to apply for the UF job. And if anyone wants to see it, I have it. So I put together a 28-slide portfolio, and this was kind of my presentation to University of Florida. Again, happy to share it with anybody after the fact. But it was really important for me. This was literally my second slide. So it was very important, going back to what Dave was saying, to make sure I declared what was important to me, what my personal value system was. And I think most of the conversations and the topics that you guys have talked about, there's a universal thread that's even just in listening to Dave, is if we don't have a really good sense of who we are and what we value, we're not going to be as effective as we can be. All right, so for me, my what's important are my faith, my family, married with 3 kids, they're a little bit older now, relationships, strong character, and health. That was important for me. And this was something I'm trying to balance practical with philosophical. I actually showed this to our staff when we got our staff together at Florida, and then I also showed it to our team. One of the other things, so I thought it was really important that they understand, and I'm putting myself out here, here's what I value. The other thing that we've done from a culture standpoint, we'll talk about a little bit later. So these were my whys. So create lifelong relationships. There's some history behind that. Like we had a lot of international players at Embry-Riddle. So like that's in Sweden, that's in Iceland, that's in Denmark. So it was pretty cool to have those lifelong relationships. This was very important for me to make sure that we can inspire using the platform of soccer to teach, challenge, inspire, empower, impact student athletes. So that when they finish their experience, they are more prepared for success in life. We can define success maybe a little bit differently, but that's a safe way of being able to say what you want to say. And then this, listen, none of us would be in this room if we didn't love competing / winning. This was after we won. That was after we won the conference championship for the first time. There's a bus video as well. I mean, it's pretty cool and a big part of why we do it. And then for me, I was unapologetic. Like I very much wanted to be a role model. If you can see that bottom picture, I'm pregnant. So our first 2 children, I was due on our season opener. Awesome timing. But it was really important. That was 3 days before I had our first child. In preseason in August. And so it was really important for me to make sure that I could model to these women in particular that you can, if you feel called, led to do work and you want to have a family, there is a way to be able to do both. You need some help, you need a village. And one of the other really cool things is I had support from my AD. So when I was due, my AD said to me, I'm going to be really mad at you if you hurry back because you're sending the wrong message to all these players. Is that this needs to be your priority, this time with your child, this time with your husband and your newborn. So that was pretty cool. So that's a really important part for me. And so when you think back to 3 aspects of a team culture: create, grow, and protect. Create, grow, and protect. So we're going to talk about the first one. So create. When you are thinking about creating your coaching philosophy, your coaching culture, I know that's one of the objectives here. Like, how do you do that? My first piece of advice would be, please make it authentic to you. If it's not authentic to you, it's not going to last. So if you're like, man, that was a cool thing that this coach did, I want to do that, but it's not really actually it's not one of your core values, then it's going to be hard to sustain over time. So the best cultures start from the leader creating the culture and the values that are authentic to them, because you're going to live it. You got to live it. Okay, so let's see. Matt Damon just did this really cool interview. How many of you guys have been coaching 5 years or less? 10 years or less? More than 15? Okay, so you guys are going to get it especially. So I've coached 25 years. There's a huge difference in this, I hate to say it, but this generation compared to when I started. I would say even in the last 10 years. You're nodding your head. What do you think is different?
I think the mentality of the players, athletes, families as well. I think the family structure has changed quite a bit.
Yep. Who else has been doing this for a while? Yeah.
Process
In what way?
takes long, it takes a while.
Yeah.
And trusting it, and it doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah. And the irony is, at least in my experience, we've been given less time. We have less control, but more accountability and urgency. It's not a healthy balance. Do you have something?
I was going to say free play. They're not playing on their own.
Yeah. Yeah. Matt Damon did this really interesting interview, and he was talking about the landscape of movies. And he was talking, said, hey, how has, they called it the Netflix phenomenon. How has that changed movies? And he said, well, in a normal action film, for example, you would have 3 action scenes in the movie. And they would slowly build up this crescendo to where the third one was the big climax fight scene. And that would kind of be the big, scene, and then it would kind of finish the plot. They said now people don't make it to the third action scene. So you have to hit them at the very beginning because they don't have the patience to go through all of those scenes. So that was the first thing, is like you have to grab their attention early. The second thing is oftentimes they're doing things like while they're watching a movie. So many movies now are watched on computers or on phones. So they're saying that movie production people are not spending the same amount of money because people aren't going to the theaters anymore. So their production level is kind of dumbed down a little bit because people are watching it and that. So it's recognizing some of these changes. So for me, when I'm thinking about creating the culture, a lot of these players now don't have the patience, they don't have the sustainability, they don't have the attention span. So you have to make sure that you pick 3 or 4 things and really be authentic and grab them. The tendency I had is I had like 8 or 9 core values. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna knock all of these out. It's really hard to teach those over a course of, and reinforce them over the course of a period of time. So my advice for you, identify 3 or 4 really core values and implement those and reinforce those as deeply as you can. Then you can kind of layer them in. So for me, when I got to Florida, I don't know if any of you guys know the background, I took over the program after the prior year 13 players had transferred. Very public, claims of verbal abuse. The coach that was there was only there for 1 year. Their staff was only there for 1 year. So when I got to the program, they're in a really different place than when I've got to Embry-Riddle or Tennessee or things like that. So sometimes you have to meet the program where they are. So for me at Florida, based on, I had all these core values, but I also had to meet them where they were and what did this program need based on what they had. So we had 3, and these were just kind of, I would say, again, like core values: joy, connect, and blue collar. So for this particular program, the joy piece was really important because so many of them had a miserable experience. I'm not blaming the coach on that. I think that goes back to the generational, some of the differences. So, but they just needed to get back to the joy of why they're playing. The second one was connect. Connect was a team. The team was super divided. There was people that liked the coach, people that didn't like the coach. So they were really like at arms with each other. So had to connect each other. Also had to connect from the top down, from a new staff. Like, how do they trust us? How do they learn to feel comfortable with us, believe in the vision? And then blue collar. And that is, we knew we did not have talent when we took the program over. And so we were gonna have any sort of success, we had to just be really gritty. We had to be really blue collar, but that also went off the field. That's being grateful. That's being involved in the community service. All of these things is like University of Florida, we had a $7 million soccer building just for our team. We don't have a men's team. Like, they have given everything. I wouldn't let them get any of their gear without passing the fitness test. And even then I kept half of it because I'm like, they won't know the difference. And then we spread it out throughout the year. There's all these little things you could do. But again, if the values weren't authentic to me, then these would be kind of like gimmicks of things and ideas. So again, if I could implore, please, whenever you're thinking about a culture, make sure these values are authentic to you. A couple other things that we did to reinforce this. Again, I'm trying to make this as practical and not philosophical. We had a player agreement. Funny story. So in the world of NIL, my first year, our team goes to spring break And I follow our players on Instagram, and I see some pretty revealing bathing suit pictures on Instagram. And I was like, whoa, guys, hey, hang on. But I had to go to our administration because 4 of them had NIL deals with a bathing suit company. So like, how can I coach this of like, hey, we're representing the University of Florida, but I can't hurt their ability to monetize through NIL. So we created a policy, and forgive me, this might sound funny, but it was a no butt cheek policy. So it was in the player agreement. They could take their bathing suit pictures, but they couldn't have bathing suit pictures with butt cheeks. But that's the reality that we had to come up with. So this player agreement gives us the ability to set some of those standards and some of the cultural values that we have, and then they would all sign it. The second thing we did that was really helpful is we created a parent handbook. So every year at the beginning of the year, we gave out a parent handbook. It would reinforce the rules that we had, and we didn't have a lot of rules. It was more of like standards. We would do a parent handbook. We would tell them all of like the hotels, so they had all the logistics. And then we had a link to this really helpful article that talked about how can parents have a healthy relationship with their college athlete. So again, if we're trying to help create good behaviors, good relationships with the parents, we also had a tailgate and some of those other information. So the parent handbook was super helpful. That was another way to reinforce the culture. So again, first thing is you have to create that the culture. It has to be authentic to you. The second thing is to grow that culture. And for me, if you are not intentional, I think we would all agree with this, if we're not intentional with our efforts to create a culture, then a culture is going to be created, right? Something's going to happen like you were talking about. So if you're not intentional to try and shape that culture, it's going to be shaped. It's going to be shaped by players. Now it's going to be shaped by outside influences. We have players with agents. Like you have the noise of social media. You have all these different factors. And so it's really important that you recognize if I'm not intentional to try and to create and reinforce the culture, it's going to be created by somebody else. Okay, so how can we do that? How can you be intentional? We remind our team and staff, because the culture is just as much important to the staff, of your identity off the field just as much as we do on the field. For us at Florida, we spend so much time on our playing principles and our identities, and we spend so many sessions around like making sure there's no error, like no confusion. If you're playing this role, this is what this looks like. If you're playing this role, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. You have to make sure that you're reminding your team and staff of the identity. So can you catch them doing good? That's the most powerful thing, in my opinion. We actually had that approach with film as well. When we would show film clips of them doing what we wanted them to do, that resonated more. Again, I've only coached women, so I can't speak for men. But from a women's psyche, that resonated more when we showed them, hey, keep doing this. Same thing with the culture, catch them doing good. So for me, a couple examples of that, we had a really relational ID camp. Our players would all come. They would be hands-on with the players, the campers that would come, and inevitably 15, 20, 25 emails from parents being like, that was the best ID camp we've ever been to, whatever. I would pass them on. I'd put them in our group chat for our team so that they would see those values reinforced. Another example, I'll show you this. We all know what this is, right? So that's actually a picture of our team. And so an example for me, like I'm a total stickler about going to the line. We spent 30, 45 minutes session with our team talking about what does this represent. I secretly filmed our team. They didn't know. I secretly filmed our team with a fitness test and showed them the video. So if I'm trying to create a standard or a culture, I have to reinforce it. So this was really cool. I wanted to get it blown up and put in our locker room because every single player was going to the line. Another thing that was really important for us for our culture, again, trying to do some practical ideas, is we really emphasize celebrating other people's successes. So there was never a goal scored by our team where in film the next day we didn't show the bench. Here's an example. So that was against Georgia. We scored with 2.5 minutes left to tie 2-2. We finished with the tie. Again, another practical way that you can reinforce some of the values of, because it's not easy in this generation to celebrate other people's success, because that's other people's money at our level. That's them making money. That's going pro. All of these things. So much of our culture right now is reinforcing the individual. So you have to be really intentional to promote the team aspect. We schedule time. So our approach, I flipped through this. I'm trying to get through. I had to cut some out. Student, person, player. That's our approach. That was Embry-Riddle. That's not mine. The legendary coach basketball coach and AD at Embry-Riddle. That was his, and I took it with me to Florida. The baseball coach at Kentucky, he does the same. He came from Embry-Riddle. Student, person, player. That was a really nice, easy collection of succinct way of saying what our coaching philosophy is. And you can spend a lot of time kind of dissecting each of them. It was on our practice shirts. It was in our locker room. It was on every one of our graphics on social media. It would close with student, person, player. And that was just recognizing that we are going to invest in each of those elements. So that's a holistic approach of doing that. So we would have student, person, player workshops. We would go do the disc profile. If you haven't done it, it's really helpful. It's really cool when you do it from a playing standpoint. We would do fun staff outings because I'm a big believer of being committed but not consumed. There's an important distinction there. So for us, how do we live that as a staff? We would go play pickleball. We would have family nights where we bring our families in and we just have dinner at the building. Again, just trying to reinforce the culture piece. We had a commitment continuum worksheet, really, really cool tool. If you need some, you can probably Google it, that our players would do. I would write senior letters and I would always put verses. That was a really important thing for me. As I would always leave with a verse. Obviously, to be intentional to grow your culture, your team leadership group. Jeff Jansen, the leadership manual is a really helpful guide for us. We would go through that. The best advice that I learned the hard way, because I didn't do it right, was making sure you have real buy-in from your leadership group with a two-way feedback. So make sure that they have a safe platform where they can communicate the team's issues back to you, and that you don't get defensive. That was something that took a lot of time. Gainesville's a pretty cool college town. So the drinking policy was something. So the approach we had is we bought our team Whoop bands so that they could see the impact of drinking rather than us sitting there and saying, hey, don't drink. This is why. It's bad for your performance. The proteins block all your healing, whatever, all that recovery. So we, again, tried to give them buy-in as to why we were trying to ask for these standards and not necessarily just trying to come at them from a leadership standpoint. That's that comparison of power versus influence, like the leadership approach. You can use your power or you can use your influence. Influence is sustainable a little bit longer. And then last thing is just you got to spend time with your people, with their culture. You have to spend time with your people. You are going to have so much more of a gateway to having hard conversations with them if you have a relationship with them. This generation is tricky in that they say they want really honest feedback, but are they really actually prepared to hear honest feedback? They have an insatiable desire for feedback. We had 6 different ways that they would get feedback on a weekly basis, and they said it wasn't enough. 6 different ways. Like, we went above and beyond. So you just have to recognize that, but you're never going to be able to really reach them, again, for trying to be transformational coaches. If you don't have a relationship with them, that's going to be really hard to do. And then the last thing, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because Dave spent a lot of time on this, is if we don't model it and if we aren't consistent with it, then it's not gonna last. You asked you kind of said this was a question that we had in our staff conference room, and I had it on my computer, and it says, who are we becoming as a result of the chase? And at my level, if I'm just being honest, there's a ruthlessness to our job and to our profession. And we were constantly asking ourselves, who are we becoming as a result of the chase? And the answer is we wanted to be the same person in competition, out of competition, before being the coach at UF, after being the coach at UF. And I feel, so I don't know if you guys know this, I will assume that not everybody does. I got let go in November, 3.5 years after being there, after our most successful season in 7 years. 26 of our 28 goals were scored or assisted by a freshman, and we had just signed the top 5 recruiting class in the country, and I got let go on signing day. No explanation, no drama, just said we need a change in leadership. And I was like, wait, what? Like, I just had a meeting 2 weeks ago, everybody is happy, everything was good, and totally blindsided. And the best part of all of this, I was talking to Mark, we've talked a lot about this, is when I look back on my time and I think of what I define success as, I was extremely successful. It just might not be the success that this world measures. We had from 1 player to 14 players doing a Bible study. And that alone, we had coaches asking questions, not just within our staff, but in our department asking questions. I had more than 200 phone calls from people, some people, the GM of our football program, being like, I've just watched you from afar and you just do things differently. Tell me more. You will never, like I get chills, you will never, ever, ever regret living out your values. No matter what happens, you will never regret it. So if you base your behavior, your culture, your decisions, all of that, and you go back and you measure that based on your values, you will never regret it. I have no regrets. Even though I lost my job because I didn't win, I guess, quick enough, I still don't really know why, I don't regret it. I am so proud of how our staff did things in the heat of the moment in a very competitive environment. And to me, that was success. I'm going to say we led with faith. We did things the right way when it's not the norm anymore. We didn't tamper, we didn't cheat, we didn't negative recruit, we didn't do those things. We built authentic relationships. We made our players feel like they were people first, and we made the program better. To me, in my measurement, that is success. I'm sorry that UF didn't see it the same way, but to me, again, if you live your life and do your job that matches your values, you will never regret it. So if I could say one thing, that's what I want to encourage you guys with. That's why I was so excited to come here, is because I could talk for 2 days on what I've learned from this experience. And it was cool, you know, Mark has been fired, Kelly's been fired. We all kind of joke about, like, kind of a club that you've not really fully coached unless you've been fired. But man, it's been the most positive experience for me, and I have no regrets. So it's wonderful that you guys are taking the time to do this. This is a great step to be around other people that can reinforce these same values. If I can ever be of a resource, I'm happy to give out my contact information, because ultimately this is so much more important than the wins and losses. And that's hard. That's hard because a lot of us are in positions where we still need to do both. And that's what we're trying to do, is figure out how we can do both. But keep living out your life based on your values, and you'll have no regrets. The last thing, a Bible teacher that I loved, she said, Sam, you will never regret any act of obedience to the Lord. You will never regret any act of obedience to the Lord. And if we live our life like that, we'll have no regrets. I have a couple other verses that if you just write down, that I found that the players really responded really well to, and it came up in conversation. Dave already talked about it. So that was how I shared my faith, was just through my own personal life. But Philippians 4:6-7, that was a no-brainer, that every player, because anxiety and stress and pressure is a real thing. So that do not be anxious about anything, but in everything through prayer and petition With thanksgiving, present your requests to the Lord, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your heart and mind in Christ Jesus. Ephesians 2:10, for we are his workmanship, created in Christ Jesus for good works, which God prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. I said to anybody that would listen, this is God's program. I'm just here serving it. Psalm 139:14, I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. That was an especially important verse for women that are in the constant battle of comparison, often physical comparison. That was a wonderful verse. And then Deuteronomy 31:8, it is the Lord who goes before you. He will be with you. He will not leave you nor forsake you. Do not fear or do not be dismayed. That was on my coaching game day book. So one of the habits I had in closing, I would pray every national anthem. Every national anthem, the first thing I do is pray for my husband. And then the next thing I would do is I kind of made the verse my own, made the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart, and then I would say my actions, be pleasing in your sight, O Lord. That I did not want to get lost in the competition and, like Dave was saying, pop off on a ref and then sit here and then go talk to one of our players about emotional regulation or grace or, I felt like it was a conflict. And then the other thing I did is I did have 2 verses in my game day book. Multiple times in a game, sometimes I would just open up that and just go back and reference that. One was about fear and one was about just trust. So all those things that you can do to kind of reinforce our value system to, again, try and maintain that culture. But I've got plenty more. If any of you guys, I'm here through Yo's session. She's awesome. If you weren't here, you guys heard her yesterday. She's great. I can't wait to watch her session. But if you need anything, please, I'm here to help. But again, just really happy that they have this event. Thank you very much for allowing me to come and share, and go Gators. I can still say that. I'm not mad.